Okay, welcome to the Business Podcast. Today I am joined by Patrick Burns from Solar Services Scotland. And Solar Services Scotland is a nationwide solar panel business. Welcome to the show.
Thanks very much.
It's great having a multi-millionaire on the show. What we're going to do today is we're going to discuss the realities of running a business. Yep. We're going against everything you see on Instagram. And on Instagram, it's all yachts, Lamborghinis, chilling on the beach, working 3 hours a week and earning billions of pounds, no effort. But we know the reality is different. So I think I've got Matthew behind the camera with a few questions he's going to ask us. So Matthew, just feel free, and we're just going to have a casual discussion.
No worries.
I'm just getting started. So what's your prediction for utility prices?
Well, this year, I think, referring to the beginning of the year, a lot of people were in shock when prices shot up in January, February, and SSE forecast that by December of this year, referring back to March, prices would hit 54 pence per kilowatt. People were saying, never going to happen. Never going to be 54 pence. Now, I'm getting a lot of my commercial customers coming on to me and they're saying to me, my broker's quoting me 68, 72 pence per kilowatt for coming out of my contract at the end of this year. So it's amazing how much things can change so quickly. I think certainly by this time next year, it wouldn't be a surprise if you were to see £1 per unit, £1 per kilowatt, certainly on electric.
Yeah. So just to put that into perspective, the current rates that a lot of businesses are tied into is 13 pence.
Yes.
The cheapest tariff that I could find on the market today is 64 pence. So our bills, utility bills, are going to go up from 20,000 a year to over 100,000 a year.
Yep.
And I think businesses are going to suffer big time. I think
Without a doubt.
I think the inflation is going to go through the roof.
Yep.
Businesses are going to close. Thousands of people are going to be out of a job. And the thing is, I don't see any politicians with any answers. I don't know what you think about that, Patrick.
I think that's a very realistic view on things. The big thing for me just now is that last year, people were talking about, things are great, the economy's starting to move again, but there was always going to be a tidal wave from what had happened with regards Brexit,
Yeah.
the post-pandemic, movement coming out there,
Yeah.
and we're now seeing that just now. That's actually what's come to fruition.
Yeah. I think you're right. The COVID really messed with the numbers in the economy. There was like hundreds of £200 billion or something pumped into the economy. Everyone was like, businesses had more cash, lots of furlough cash in the economy. Yep. Businesses were reporting record profits. Of course they would. There's 200 extra billion pound floating around. Mm-hmm. But I think we're back down to reality, and I think it's going to hit very hard.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree with you. I think if you take, just say for instance, a small business, and a really good example of this is a dairy farm, because there's lots and lots of dairy farmers up and down the country, and you'll find that these people, they work really hard. Maybe on the farm they've got 40, 50 staff. Their bills are, for instance, £250,000 a year. Their contract they're locked into is 12 or 13 or 14 pence. They maybe are not aware of the fact that prices they're going to come out, their contract are going to be then 70, 80, 90 pence.
Yeah.
And from having, obviously, your bill at £250,000, you're then going to be paying £1.5 million. Your margin, your business margin, your profit is all gone.
Yeah.
You're now operating in the red. And like you're saying, there's going to be lots and lots of businesses that are going to close off the back of this unless the government does something.
Yeah. And I think it's a shame for the government because, it's a shame for the people of the country because the SNP, all they're banging on about is independence.
Yep.
The Tories seem to be lining their own pockets. Labour, I'm a Labour supporter,
Yep.
and I have no idea what they stand for. So politics is a mess, and I think that's the fault of the public. We've allowed the politicians to get away with murder, we've allowed the politicians to get away with doing very little for too long. And when was it? It's just, I just can't believe it. And Yeah, it just seems to be the one thing I don't like. We were brought up, you might have heard this, everyone would have heard this, oh, never discuss politics and religion.
Yep, that's very true.
You absolutely should be discussing politics. Like, I don't know who you support. Let's say, for example, you're SNP or you're Tory. Free school meals.
I'm not Tory.
Right, okay. Right. Okay, let's say, for example, free school meals. I think we should have free school meals for kids.
Totally agree.
And whatever political party you're from, that's something we agree on. And we, as the public, should hold the government to account, at least on that policy.
Yep.
But what we're doing is, oh, you're supporting a different political party, I'm supporting a different political party, you're evil, you're bad, let's not even have this discussion. I think we need to get politics back on the agenda. We need to be discussing it and holding the accountants and holding the politicians to account.
Yeah, 100%. I think the problem that we have got is we've become so accustomed to politicians lying and being allowed to lie and get away with, fraud, effectively. That's, for me, that's the word. When I think of a politician now, I think of fraud. Someone is fraudulent, and these people are not being held to account for their actions. And this has been proven time and time again. Even throughout the pandemic, there's so many inquests into, contracts for PPE, etc., things like that. And will these people ever be taken to task? Truly, no. The answer is that's not going to happen. The small guy, the little guy, is always the person who's going to suffer.
Exactly.
And as much as obviously the people put the party into power and they tell the public what they want to hear.
Yeah.
That's it.
Exactly.
I've lost faith in politics due to the amount of lies, the amount of falsehoods that have been promised and not come out.
Yeah.
And
you mentioned a very interesting word there, fraud.
Yep.
Let's talk about the Millennium Dome. The government spent £700 million in that, and within a couple of years they sold it for £25 million. £675 million was wasted by the government. The taxpayers' money, and no one was accountable. Now, imagine you and imagine we went out there and scammed the public for £675 million. We would be in jail for bloody 100 lifetimes. But yet when the politicians do it, it's like, oh, that's okay. Yeah, we got it wrong.
well, you look at even the bankers, whatnot, the politicians. The bankers in other countries were held accountable for their actions and mismanagement, misappropriation of funds a decade ago. Didn't happen in the UK.
Yeah.
No one was really taken to task. And it will be exactly the same with regards, as I say, the fraudulent PPE claims. They reckon that off the back of the pandemic and the bounce back loans alone, I think the figure quoted in the Times was £130 billion of fraudulent claims, of which 300 million were linked to 4 addresses in London. £300 million.
Yeah.
And you just think, who's going to pay for this?
Yeah.
That's a worrying.
So I started Boss Pizza, and the aim is, we want Boss Pizza to be really busy, and it was really busy.
Yep.
Now we're on to the next phase of the business. We need to buy vans, lorries, warehousing, storage.
Yep.
So this is like national distribution centres. So
Yep.
so like this is like one of the downsides, I suppose, of being successful is you don't just take the money and have a great lifestyle. To keep it alive, you have to reinvest that.
I think it all comes down to what level of business you want to operate at, and where your comfort zone is.
Okay.
Certainly when I was young, I had the energy to, work 7 days a week and, be constant at 7 days a week. It was just always, business. As you get older, you might lose some of that, get up and go.
Yeah.
Some days you get up and you feel, I don't really feel that great, I need to take it easy for an hour or two. I maybe need to go home a wee bit earlier tonight. I think when you're young, you want to build an empire. When you're older, you're not quite wanting to build that empire. You're quite happy with maintaining the little one that you've actually got, and where you're at in your life.
Yeah.
I think that's about. It's always important to set goals, have dreams, chase them, do these type of things. But to be realistic is very important as well. You've got to try and find the balance between life and work, and that in itself is so important.
It's very easy to say that because I was on exactly the same path. When you're younger, you've got energy, you've given up a successful job, you're putting everything into the business. You want it to be as successful as possible, therefore you put in the maximum effort. And I'm at that stage now as well, where your body just doesn't allow you to work at that pace day in, day out. It's interesting. You see, I think what people need to do is define their own level of success. And I think a lot of the stuff on the internet is about the Lamborghinis, yachts, girls, bloody Rolls Royces, you name it. It's all the sort of fancy stuff. Yeah. But I think there's nothing wrong with someone saying, I want to have a little business that pays me a decent salary, and I get to spend every evening and every weekend with the children. You know, there's nothing wrong with that.
Definitely not.
And I think as a nation, we need to be comfortable with the fact that if someone wants to aim a little bit lower and have a comfortable lifestyle, we should celebrate that rather than persecute them for not being as successful as the next person.
Well, it depends how you define success. People that tend to go out and buy your Lamborghinis, your super yachts, these people a lot of the time are driven by ego.
Yeah.
You know, and they're very egotistical. They've got to prove not only to themselves but to others that they are the best, essentially. That they're the biggest fish in the pond. Whereas if you within yourself are comfortable with who you are and what you're doing, then I think that in itself is amazing. I really do. Great
point, Patrick. I think that is a fascinating topic in itself, talking about ego. And I think you do need to be comfortable in yourself, and that leads me on to another topic that I wanted to talk to you about. Talk to me about designer clothes.
Yeah. Again, when I was young, I'll be honest, I used to love nothing more than a Friday night, playing football on a Saturday morning, having my wages, going into town, going into cruise, getting myself a nice pair of trainers and a nice, t-shirt, and then that night going out clubbing. That's what I lived for, I'll be honest with you. I didn't live for buying a house, investments, these type of things. That was me. I was happy doing that. Right. But when you get older, you start to think, all these material things that you've pursued when you were young, what really is the value in it?
Yeah.
And you start to see it for what it is. You start to see real quality. Yeah. And quality in clothes and stuff like that. Yeah. Some of the stuff you've bought when you were young, you would look at it now and think, what a lot of crap that is. That's complete shit. Yeah. but ultimately, I think it takes you to have done that and go full circle to actually realise, no, that's nice, I would pay for something like that. I would tend to say now, I try and look for something that fits well and doesn't necessarily need to be a brand, but I don't necessarily, again, go for like cheap clothes. Yeah. I like your kind of run-of-the-mill Ralph Lauren polo stuff, your Hugo Boss stuff. It's quite well made. Obviously, there is a brand there behind it. But you tend to find there's other brands as well that are just as good and are a fraction of the price. Yeah,
that's where I'm at. I don't buy designer clothes. Yep. I'm just your regular high street type of guy. And going back to something you said about security or insecurity, I think you've got to be comfortable with whatever you've got. And see, when you buy nice things, you should buy them for yourself
100%.
And not buy them to show to other people. And there's a certain sense of satisfaction in that. So, like my watch, for example, when I dress up in the morning, when I go to my wardrobe in the morning, I put on whatever watch is I feel like it. Now, that could be an expensive watch or it could be a £5 watch from Argos, right?
Yep.
And I've got a £5 watch from Argos, and I'll wear that sometimes. And I was doing a TikTok video and someone commented, nice watch. It's $4.99 from Argos, but I'm comfortable wearing that.
Good.
And I'm not like, oh, that's a cheap watch, I can't wear that. That's a watch I wear when I play football. Yep. It's actually quite comfortable and it tells me the time. What more do you need?
Exactly.
So I think if you are, there's something to be said about spending money on good things, but spend it for yourself, not to show other people.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. I think if you're buying something to show off to other people, you're doing it for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Next, Matthew.
Yeah. So, how long did it take for you to become an overnight success?
I wouldn't even say I'm an overnight success just now, you know, Matthew. I think the definition of success in my mind certainly is someone who's really, really happy. I look at myself and I look at my lifestyle. You know, sometimes you're working 16, 17-hour days. You don't stop. You're actually missing out on life. You're missing out on the things that are going on round about you. You're missing activities that your wee boy's doing. You're missing him growing up. And I'm always aware that that's the most important thing. The rest of it's really just bullshit. You know, effectively you're dealing with people's problems every day, complaints. If someone's, you know, got a deadline, you're having to work to that deadline. But life is how you spend it with the people around about you. And my idea of happiness is if you can find the balance to provide a good quality of life for yourself and your family, everyone's in good health, and you're happy, then that's success for you.
That's a great answer. How long did it take for you to become like a multi-millionaire in financial terms? So when you started your business, how long did it take for you to make your first million or 2 million?
Well, solar services was really 2015. We at the time had done very well the previous 3 years. The solar industry had been on a bit of a boom from kicking off in 2010. I got involved in 2012, and I done fantastically well. But at that point in time, a lot of businesses were closing down. Amber Rudd was the Energy Secretary at the time, and she made the announcement that the feed-in tariff was going to be dropped to 4 pence and then eventually to be phased out. Now, off the back of that, the installer network went from over 1,200 installers in the UK to less than 200. So effectively 80% of the businesses that were installing solar panel systems closed down within a period of about 12 months.
Right.
And I thought, you know what, there'll be a huge demand for things breaking down, you know, maintenance. It's probably from my past life as an engineer, but that's when I set solar services up, and it grew arms and legs from there. You know, the first couple of years were really, really tough. Exactly what we've been speaking about. You're buying vans, you're ploughing a lot of money into the business, you're investing in people, you're investing in systems. The mechanics of my business completely changed, and they have changed as times went on. People have came, people have went, but you're trying to put systems in place so that you're not reliant too much on people, you're reliant on the system that's there, and then basically being able to service and maintain the network of customers that you've got. Over the past 8 years, we've accumulated 9,500 customers up and down Scotland. Most of those people we go to either annually or once every 2 years.
So you started in 2012?
2012 was my first time in the industry. That's when I started.
So how long did it take? So you're talking, at what point did you say your business hit its peak?
It's only really in the last, I would say, 3 years.
Right, okay.
In all honesty, that the business, I've thought to myself, it's never been as good. It's been year-on-year growth since 15, since setting up solar services.
Yeah.
But it's really the first 4 years were really tough.
Yeah, that's true. So I think for anyone listening who's thinking of starting a business, and again on Instagram there's all this, you start a business and you make millions overnight. So it's taken you the best part of a decade.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's not, like you say, it's not about, you set a business up, you've got other people running about for you, you're driving a flash sports car, you're wearing designer clothes, you're going to Dubai every other week and getting into beach parties and drinking cocktails. That's not reality. The reality is probably you're up to your neck in shit half the time, dealing with complaints. One day you're a psychologist, the next day you're a counsellor. You know.
Next day you're a marketing guru. There's 100 different hats. You're a marketing
guru. The next day you've got to be an accountant. You've got different hats you wear every day, and you put them on from time to time throughout the day.
Yeah, exactly. And it's quite hard making the switch. Like my work is very physical, or it was very physical back in the day. And again, in the first 6 years, the first 6 years were horrendous. I didn't take a holiday for the first 6 years of my business. And you say 4 years, the first 4 years were very tough.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people think, oh, you start a business and it's really easy, but it's far from it. So for 6 years, I didn't take a holiday.
Yeah.
And you know what? Someone might say, oh, well, you should have taken some time off. You just can't. See when you're in the shit, when you're absolutely in the deep end, you can't just be in the deep end and stop swimming.
No.
You're going to drown. When you're in the deep end, you've got to swim harder than you've ever swum before if you want to survive. And that's a reality of a lot of business. My God, we're going to depress the people.
I think it takes a certain type, to be honest with you. It's certainly not for everyone doing it, because, you know, someone that's came out of a corporate job and goes into having a business themselves, they're that used to the structure of maybe starting work at 9 o'clock, finishing at 5 o'clock. Every year they've maybe got 6 or 7 weeks leave that they take, paid leave. You know that's a thing of the past.
Yeah.
The minute that you switch off and you stop answering emails, you stop taking calls from your staff, you stop helping people, the business just takes a nosedive.
Yeah.
That's it.
I say to people, being an entrepreneur, there is no off button. You're working 24/7, 365.
Yep.
And the other thing is, because I've worked in the corporate environment for 10 years and I've worked as an entrepreneur, and I can say with certainty, fact, being a business owner is 100 times more difficult. I could only dream of 6 weeks holiday as an entrepreneur. If I get 1 week holiday a year, I am loving it.
Yep.
Like, you worked in the corporate environment as well.
Yep.
What's your analysis of corporate job versus entrepreneur?
Certainly a lot more stable. You feel that there's the security there if you're working for a national firm, and certainly the structure that's put in place for you is second to none. You don't have that when you're the entrepreneur. You're there to provide the structure for your staff.
Yeah.
You then become HR, everything for all your team that are working round about you. The hard part is accepting that, because there is no let up. Yeah. There'll be a day when people don't come to you and go, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
Do you feel a bit down today? You know, do you want to take the morning off? That's not the case. You've always got to be the guy. That's it.
And do you not find it's like, even though you're surrounded with dozens of people, intellectually it's a lonely place being a business owner.
Yeah.
Because there's not many people that you can just discuss or share a problem with, because no one really understands when you're at the top of the pyramid that is, it's actually quite a lonely place, entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I think for any business owner, you know, if you're a small business, if you have a large, you know, national business, certainly if you're at the top of the tree, as they say, people are always coming to you looking for you to solve their problems.
Yeah.
And it is a lonely place, because sometimes you feel, and I've felt this, I'm sure you have, you want to turn to someone for advice.
Yeah.
You're looking for someone to go to give you the answer.
Yeah.
And I've often thought, you know, it's therapy in a way. I can sit and I can speak to a random person. I've got some customers who have had very successful businesses, and occasionally they phone me up and I've been speaking to them and they're going, how's your business? How's life and everything else? And I've went, you know what, this is the truth. And he said, oh, take a minute, get a cup of tea, you know, and you end up a chat with him on the phone. And 30 minutes later you feel a wee bit better, because maybe he's given you a solution that you didn't think of yourself.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to have someone like that.
Yeah.
I certainly don't have it. I don't know if you've got someone like that in your business, in your life even, that you can turn to. But if you've got, you know, some kind of, people talk about mentorship and, you know, that type of guidance that you can get throughout having a business, that really is gold.
Yeah, I think it's something we should maybe consider, because as business owners, it's give, and what are we doing to replenish our own mental well-being and our own sort of intellectual well-being as well. So I think it's important to actually have a mentor, but it's easier said than done.
Totally.
Yeah.
And the problem you've got again is, well, I think trust is a big thing. you know, because to share problems, you're probably sharing other people's problems with someone, and you're hoping that that's going to be kept confidential between you two, and then there'll be a solution. It's just not easy.
And it's quite hard to find a mentor that's walked the same path as you.
Yep.
I've come across mentors and they maybe worked in a different industry, and it's quite difficult. They sort of understand the problem, but they don't really. So it's quite tough.
Yeah.
Okay, next, Matthew, what's the next topic?
Just really start with this.
Okay.
Every 30 minutes. Just,
Okay.
Top 3 tips for your business success.
Okay. Can you start this one with by saying my top 3 tips for business success are?
My top 3 tips for business success would be, number 1, always be prepared to take a risk. You know, don't ever be scared of taking risk. If you're scared to take that risk, then you're going to sit on the side. You're going to sit on the bench. You're never going to know where you could have went. So don't be scared to take the risk. Try and weigh up the pros and cons of doing so, and try and be as decisive as possible in you know, making your decision on that. For me, that's the most important thing. I always lived by the motto of take a chance. That's it. Second business tip would be, there's nothing, no matter what anyone might say to you, nothing beats hard work. If you put the passion, the time, the effort, the drive into your business, then the chances are you will be a success. You know, it doesn't happen by saying to yourself, well, I'm only going to give it 4 hours, or, you know, I've been told by people that the first year of business we should run at a loss. If you think a bank manager or anybody is going to want to hear that, then you're living in fantasy land.
Yep.
Tip number 3, you're only as good as your team. Try and get the best people that you can round about you. It's important that you can trust people as well. That's a big thing in business. So if you can get good people that you can trust, you're winning already.
Yep, good.
What about yourself, buddy?
Okay, for me, I think it's... can we just talk about this? First, risk. Yeah, I love that. Risk is better than regret. That's a good saying. And nothing beats hard work. I think people underestimate exactly... Let's define hard work, right?
Yep.
Hard work, when you're starting out a business, you've got to be all in, both feet, 24/7. You can't do it part-time. And I think the big advantage that you've got if you work hard is you're streets ahead of anyone else, because most people don't like to put in that level of effort. So if you put in an insane amount of effort for the first couple of years of your business, you could end up streets ahead of them. Mm-hmm. So that's a good point. And yeah, I agree. You're only as good as your team. You've got to get really good at finding good people.
Yeah.
Motivating, managing, training good people, and then keeping good people as well. So that's really good. Okay, so mine, product. You've got to have an exceptional product. So I spend a disproportionate amount of my time quality controlling the product. Have a great product, number 1. Number 2, marketing. I spend 50% of my time marketing. There's no point doing a good job if no one knows about it.
Yeah.
Matthew, what's the third point on that?
It's a tough road and embrace it.
Oh, yeah. So my third point is very similar to yours. It's a tough road. Understand this, the journey of entrepreneurship is harder than any other journey you've probably taken in your life. Yep. And if you start off with that mentality that this is a really tough gig and I'm geared up for this, you maximize the chance of being successful. Definitely. Never go into business thinking, oh, this is going to be easy. Never go into business thinking, oh, this is going to be a part-time gig and I could do it 3 hours a week or something. It's not going to work.
A bit like you, I think 2015 when I was really starting the business, that's when we knew Matthew was on his way,
right.
My firstborn. And for the first 2 years I worked 7 days a week, long hours every single day. And it was out of 2 reasons. One was it was a new business and I knew that you would have to put the effort and the time in. And I think the second was just fear of failure.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing as well. You tend to find people that have came from a working class background and that have had nothing, don't ever want to go back to having nothing, and that really is a big driver for people. A lot of people who are privileged never ever experienced that or know what it's like to have nothing.
Yeah.
Then I think that's a big thing.
I put out a TikTok and I said, you've got to make the sacrifice. So for the first 6 years of my son's life, I never saw him. And then at the end of that video, I said it's been well worth it. And people said, well, how can it be well worth it?
Yeah.
Well, now it is, because I get to spend the maximum amount of time with the children. They've got the best of everything. Like when we were growing up, we had bloody no toys, no nothing. I remember I took my son to Smith's, the toy superstore, and he wanted a train set. And it was about this size. I says, no, you're not having it. You're having the big one. Because when we were kids, we never got, we couldn't even get the wee ones. So I wanted my son to have, the best train set that we could get there at the time. So I think having gone through that sacrifice, life becomes a lot better, and you can afford much better things. You can afford better education, better lifestyle, better holidays, more time with your family. But you have to go through the sacrifice. You don't get it for nothing.
Yeah.
It's hard work.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Good. Matthew.
Yeah. So if you had to start from scratch, what would you do differently?
That's a really good question. So, doing things differently. I think really define scratch. If it was to go back to, school, then I think education would be the big push for myself. Not that I didn't get an education, I did, but I think education's the key to giving you every chance of a successful career, no matter what you do. That would be the big one for myself. In terms of business, I think everyone's going to go through a circle. And when I say that, I mean that they're going to be a little bit wet behind the ears when they start, and they'll believe a lot of what they've been told by various people. But it's only when you've walked in your own shoes for 10 years and you've been through it all in business, and you've had people that you've loved and trusted within your business that have let you down, and you've lost good people, that you actually sit back and you go, wow, I've learned a lot here, and you've taken so much on board, and you probably amaze yourself with how you've dealt with it. That's the other thing. Certain types of people just give up.
Yeah.
Some people will be in a bar drinking, going like that killed me, and they've got an excuse for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
But the real people that go forward in life, they don't give up. They continue to drive themselves on.
Yeah.
And they don't let excuses get in the road.
Yeah, Matthew, that's a really good point. That's that's a good one. And there's no easy answer to that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Ask me as well. So we've got a bit from me as well here.
Mm-hmm. So if you had to start from scratch, what would you do differently?
I actually don't know. I think if I were to start from scratch again, and I'm going to contradict what I said earlier on, I wouldn't have worked so hard. I think if I had to start from scratch again, here's a big one, right? If I had to start from scratch again, the one thing I would change is I wouldn't take on other people's opinions so personally. I wouldn't take their opinions and reviews so personally. I started my business in 2009. That was just the start of TripAdvisor, and you've got to review absolutely everything. Mm-hmm. And I've just given up my job, my career. I've invested all my life savings. And then all it takes is for someone to come into the restaurant and eat your brand of proper Indian food. That's the same food we eat in the house. Oh, that's a load of rubbish. Yeah. Didn't like the style of the restaurant. Didn't like the waiting staff. Didn't like the colour of the food because it's all natural. And that actually hurts.
Yep.
And in the first couple of years, that used to really, really bother me. Because wait a minute, I'm just a regular guy. I've just tried really, really hard, and you've just come and absolutely knocked me out.
Yep.
But now, so I think if I had to change one thing, I would have if I could tell myself one thing from 10 years ago or 12 years ago, don't take reviews too personally. Because no matter what you do in the world, you could do the most heartwarming thing in the world. You go online and there'll be someone with a negative comment or someone with something negative to say about it. So that's what I would have. That's what I would say.
Keyboard warriors.
Yeah, just don't take things too personally, and just grow a thick skin. So for the first 6-7 years of my food business, I was constantly stressed, and the stress was, are we going to be able to hold it together? It was that busy, right? The door's going to open and you don't know if you're going to get hundreds or thousands of customers. It was just insane busy. And you're just under this constant stress. And I remember discussing this with someone and they said, well, actually, that's the best type of stress that you can have. Imagine being at the other end of the scale where you've not got any customers and the bills are racking up. So I think if you're blessed with that type of stress, you should really embrace it, because it's much, much better than being in a position where you don't have the customers coming through the door. Yeah. So, and I think you've got that good stress now as well, where you've got the customers, but you can't get the supplies.
Yeah, that's the big problem we have, certainly. Just now, off the back of energy prices rising, there's not enough hours in the day.
Yeah.
And you're trying to keep everyone happy. But the problem is keeping up with orders and also getting materials. It's proving very, very difficult.
Yeah. Now, I met you last week and you had stress written all over your forehead, right?
Yep.
So now I think I realise that is actually a good stress. Now, imagine if it was a case where you had the bills to pay but no customers. That would be a whole different type of stress.
Yeah, that's very true.
So I think as business owners, we need to embrace the fact that, if you have got stresses that are good, don't let them stress you out. Actually, just embrace the fact that you're in a very fortunate position.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's, as you say, we're very blessed.
Yeah.
Certainly to be in that position.
Good. Right, Patrick Burns from Solar Services Scotland, it's been a pleasure.
Absolutely.
And I'll see you at the school gates when we go to pick up the kids.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks very much.